Welcome to the Take Your Power Back Show with Peak Performance Breakthrough Coach Kim Yeater. Today's empowering program will encourage you to step into your power, to take action in your leadership, and allow your voice to be heard. Listen in today as we speak to other freedom-loving Americans that are making a positive impact in the world by standing in truth amid adversity. Learn how to take your power back in your freedom, in your personal and professional life, in technology and creativity, and in your faith. Be inspired. Be encouraged. Be transformed. Together, let's take your power back with our host, Peak Performance Breakthrough Coach, Kim Yeater.
Well, good afternoon, my freedom-loving patriots. Welcome to the Take Your Power Back Show. Today, we are shining a light on truth, empowering our communities and demanding accountability from those in power. I'm your host, Peak Performance Master Coach, Kim Yeater. And today we're diving into a heartbreaking and urgent issue right here in our home of California, Riverside County, California. The grand jury reports and citizens' outcries have exposed a crisis in our county jails under Sheriff Chad Bianco's leadership. A record number of in-custody deaths that cannot be ignored. We are bringing the information to you, the people, so that you can powerfully choose as we all are seeking out truth and justice. In 2022 alone, 18 people lost their lives in Riverside County jails, the highest number since 2005. Among them, over the past year, was Joshua Frank Swart, a beloved son, friend, and human being whose life was cut short. Today, we honor Joshua and all those who've been failed by a system meant to protect. We'll hear from Joshua's mother, Rhonda Torres, his family friend, Ray Carney, and retired Sheriff Captain Michael Lujan, who brings 31 years of experience to this conversation. This is about truth and justice and taking our power back. Stay with us. We're going to take a moment to thank our sponsors who make the Take Your Power Back show possible. And when we return, we have Joshua's mom in the room, and that is Rhonda Torres. All right, my freedom-loving patriots, Mike Lindell. Have you heard of Mike Lindell before? Mike Lindell has been paving the way for we freedom-loving patriots to take our power back when it comes to sleeping at night. Let's hear what Mike has to say.
Just like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented My Pillow. My Pillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got My Pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King My Pillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic My Pillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
All right, we love our Mike Lindell, and I got to tell you, I had an incredible night's sleep last night. I love my Giza Dream bed sheets. I love my Pillow pillows, and I don't know about you, but I have the complete mattress sleep system, and I feel great. Now, that's important. When we do the work that we do, we need a good night's rest. So get your rest just like I get my rest. Go to mypillow.com/Kim. That's mypillow.com/Kim. You, my freedom-loving patriots, deserve a good night's sleep. Now, Let's talk about the midst of economic warfare that we're in. We're all spending money, right? We certainly are. And we vote with our dollars. So, how can we take our power back in the midst of our everyday spending? Do we continue to shop with the big box retailers like Procter and Gamble, Colgate and Palmolive, Johnson and Johnson, Unilever? If we do, we continue to feed into BlackRock and Vanguard. We continue to feed into the pharmaceutical industry. It's time for we the people to stop being sick by the heavy metals and junk in the everyday big box retailer products and make the switch to an American family-owned, debt-free USA manufacturer. They are called PatriotsBuyingAmerican.com. PatriotsBuyingAmerican.com will guide you to the resource. USA Today just named them America's best brand in 2025. Go to PatriotsBuyingAmerican.com where you can access over 450 products that are better, safer, and a lot less expensive than the stores. And you get results and you support farmers, ranchers, families, patriots just like yourself. That's PatriotsBuyingAmerican.com. And without further ado, we've got one more sponsor that you deserve to know about. That is Patriot TV Beef. Patriot TV Beef. Are you sick and tired of eating beef that maybe just doesn't taste as good as you thought it would? You keep buying beef and settling for hormones, or maybe you're buying grass-fed, but it's never truly grass-fed. What if you could access beef that was never hormoned, never antibiotics, and never mRNA, and never will be? That is our resource at patriotvbeef.com. Guys, I got to tell you, I've eaten beef at Mar-a-Lago, and it was good. But this beef is the best. You got to check it out. Had a ribeye for dinner last night. Absolutely delicious. And no hormones. So better for you and the family. So tap on in today, patriotvbeef.com. That's patriotvbeef.com. Make the switch to better beef and better life. And without further ado, I'm going to pull us back in, guys. I'm releasing this here, and we've got a show for you today, a very special show. Now, you heard me mention earlier that Rhonda Torres would be entering the room today. So I want to welcome each one of you back to the Take Your Power Back show. We're going to set the stage before we bring Rhonda in. Riverside County Jail System has been under scrutiny for years, but the spike in deaths, 18 and 2022, 9 more in the first 10 months of 23, has sparked lawsuits, a California Department of Justice investigation, and demands from groups like the ACLU for immediate oversight. Chad Bianco has called these criticisms a disgusting political game, claiming inmates receive better medical care than the public and that deaths are often the result of individual actions, not systematic failures. But the families of those lost, like Joshua Frank Swart, tell a different story. Grand jury reports since 2014 have pointed to mismanagement, inadequate medical care, and failure to implement basic recommendations like better video surveillance or improved mental health. Yet, under Sheriff Bianco, these issues persist. So today, we're here to ask the question, why? And what can we do to stop this? Let's bring on our first guest, Rhonda Torres, Joshua's mother. Rhonda, I want to say thank you, Rhonda, for being with us today. Let's pop you into the room. Loud and clear. Hello, Rhonda. Welcome to the Take Your Power Back show.
Hi, Kimberly. I know it's an odd name, but my first name is Fonda, Fonda.
Oh my gosh. Do you know Fonda? You and I talked about this before.
It's very rare and uncommon.
You know, first of all, we love that name, Fonda. It is a beautiful name. Thank you for that correction. And I don't know why I keep saying, Rhonda. And I have Rhonda here, and it is Fonda. So I'm actually going to go in and correct that because that's not okay. That says Rhonda. So, Fonda, yes. You are a rock star. You are a warrior. You have been through some intense adversity losing your son. Now, I have 4 children. And I've not lost my children, and God willing that doesn't happen anytime soon. So I can relate to you on that level of having babies. And to lose a baby, I can't imagine what that's like. So I just want to say I am so sorry for your experience of losing Joshua.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this opportunity.
It's an honor to have you here today. So, Rhonda, why don't you tell us a bit about your story, Joshua's struggles, what happened that led to his untimely death? There are details that you're bringing to the table today that I think it's important that we, the people, know.
Well, Joshua found himself faced with a drug addiction. Okay. And also, along his journey of the easily to get drug addiction, he found himself in a failed system to begin with. It didn't work for my son under the, I'd say, California way. And so Joshua, his addiction led to criminal activity involved in misdemeanors upon misdemeanors.
Mm-hmm.
A felony got involved in his criminal activity and put him in prison a few times. Okay. And so I, as a mom, respect the law.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the side of the law, and I believe, even through my Christian beliefs, that if you do commit a crime, you do the time. Joshua did. He also, during his time, became a firefighter, an inmate firefighter for 4 years. He served the state of California during those years, and I was very proud of that opportunity that was given to him and the support that he got. Joshua found himself in good shape. He was in good physical shape. He was in good condition. His mental release was good. He had found, when he was released, he found a person that he was going to marry and settle down.
Hmm.
He had plans. His condition of going out and purchasing drugs came into play, and he found himself in a situation where there was no hope for him.
Hmm.
Behind bars, behind the sheriff who had arrested him, who found him in a condition. The officer acknowledged that Joshua had something in his mouth. He had Joshua spit the object out. It was a baggie that is very well known for drugs to be bought and sold. As a sheriff, you are qualified during training to hold that position to identify these situations clearly. The officer observed the baggie that had opened in his mouth and noticed in the coroner's report and the sheriff deputy's report that Joshua was jittery and sweating profusely. Joshua was placed, although, into the sheriff's police car. He passed by. The officer did not say, look, I have a person who looks like he may have swallowed an amount of drugs and may be in trouble. Can I take him to the nearest hospital? The hospital was nearby the whole situation in his route to the jail. The officer proceeded, took him to jail. Joshua was admitted into the jail. He spoke with the nurse who saw the condition of Joshua, and he was ignored once again, placed into a sobering holding cell, they call them. And within hours, Joshua was found dead in a serious circumstance of decomposing of his body. There's an officer there. There's no push buttons for help. His death was filmed on camera, which places an officer in control of these holding cells to view what happens to these individuals upon being placed in a holding cell. The incompetence of these people have cost many lives, many survivors of families who are devastated, as I am. Many families. Okay. And his Chad Bianco remarks that I have heard have just about wiped me out. Mentally, the man is incapable of his job performities, period. He is responsible for who he hires, who is control of the camera, the nurse who is hired for these positions, who witnessed Joshua's sweating, his eyes, his contact, and all of Joshua's failures to communicate at that point due to his drug intake, obviously.
Rhonda, I am so sorry to hear this experience. It's so disheartening. What was the impact? Yeah. Let me ask you, when how soon did you find out about Joshua's death? And when did you, I from what I understand, there was a very long period of time before you found out what the cause of his actual death was. Can you kind of walk us through that real quick?
Sure. I was Joshua died at 2 or so p.m. in the afternoon. They contacted me about 8:30 at night.
All right.
Okay. And when I received the call, of course, I cried and I said, why? How? Yeah. Okay. And that's how I found out.
I got that. Let's fast forward. Did they tell you then the cause of your son's death?
No. He said he's dead. That's it.
Okay. Now, did you proceed to ask the cause of the death as the days moved on? The days, the weeks, and months?
Every day. August 18th, September, October. Okay. Every day I called. And I was told that, well, it's under investigation. You will receive no further information until the investigation is complete. I expressed some things about my son to them, and their reply to me was the investigator was no longer involved. Investigator Wendell, he went on leave, and that he was no longer in charge of the case. That took weeks. Then I called and found out another person whom I spoke to who did not tell me how my son died at all. This point, it was already November. Okay. I did not know how my son died. Through help from the sheriff that you have on your show, Michael, I was actually got a coroner's report, say, last week.
Wow. And it's been, what is that time lapse?
Yes.
Rhonda?
Yes.
Is that almost
as a mom, I was not allowed any rights at all, period.
Now, Joshua was how old at the age of his death?
Joshua was 41 years old.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're still the mother.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I understand that.
Yep.
So for that time lapse from the death of Joshua until you getting those final records was what lapse of time?
Oh, months. We're talking days, hours, minutes, months went by. November, this is May. I just now got them
Wow.
due to the help and concern and
Yes.
sincerity of your guest,
Yes.
Michael. Thank
Yes.
you, Michael.
Yes. So good. So good. Well, let me ask you this. What changes? Well, actually, let's actually land that. So, the cause of your son's death, which you just found out was
A meth overdose. Okay. A meth overdose.
okay.
And it's common when you see it would be to me like if I was in a position and I saw a person shooting up with a needle and it's empty, okay, that would show me as a human being, look, this person has just, administered drugs. Here's the evidence. I will immediately take him to the hospital. Joshua didn't have that choice.
I got that. I got that. So let me ask you, what changes do you hope to see in Riverside County jails moving forward? Because this isn't one incident.
No,
There's
it's many.
multiple incidents across the Riverside jails. So what is it that you hope to see in the Riverside County jails?
I hope to see a new sheriff. Okay, to put it point blank, a new sheriff. This needs to happen. Okay, and I also need to know that not under his authority of supervision of people that are being hired by his positions involved in conducting business with these people, that they find people who are competent, who understand both sides of the law, and who are trained properly to acknowledge, hey, there's a problem, and to be able to speak on that and not have fear for their jobs.
Yeah, that's good, Fonda. Fonda, your strength is inspiring.
Thank
And
you.
Joshua's memory will live on through this fight for justice.
I loved him.
Yeah.
I loved him.
He's your boy, and that love
Yeah.
doesn't go away. So, would you give us a word for those parents that are listening in right now that have a child, a young adult, that is struggling with drugs or an addiction, and their child has in that sense of losing hope, and they're just in that addiction? What message can you give to those parents today?
Through the anger that arises with parents today and families, and the disappointment, and all caused by drug addiction, hold them. Hold them. Okay. Take their hand, break away from that, and hold them, and tell them, I love you, no matter what journey they are facing. Okay. That's what I would do, and pray.
Fonda, thank you so much for being with us today. I pray that God gives you peace and blesses you. And today we honor Joshua, and we honor you as a mom.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Well, I'm going to have you switch on out because I know you're sharing the camera right now with Ray. Let's bring Ray directly in right now. We're not going to take a commercial break here. We're just going to bring Ray right in and do a little swap out. There we go. Ray Carney. So Ray Carney is a dear friend of Fonda and Joshua. And Ray, you have been an advocate behind the scenes in support of Fonda. You've been that emotional support. You've also been, you have made multiple calls, right?
Let me give you a rundown here. I was there on August 18th when we received the call from Riverside County Sheriff. Well, we got the call, said Joshua passed away in detention in a lockup cell. I asked why. They said, well, we can't tell you anything you don't need to know. So for the last 6 months after his death, I've been calling, sending out letters, contacting everybody. I get nothing but run around in the big blue wall. Okay. thanks, Mike, for giving me that information. I got the coroner's report, and I read the coroner's report, and there's 5 things that I noticed that are criminally negligent by the staff of by the Riverside County Sheriff, which is basically responsible. Sheriff Bianco is responsible for this, his staff. 1 is the officer should have noticed after pulling a bag out of his mouth, should have said, "Oh, there's no drugs in it. I think, hey, 26, I gotta get taken to Loma Linda Hospital." They would have proved it, okay? Or called for the paramedics. 2, they ignored that. He's sweating profusely and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
2nd, he gets into jail. He gets into for a nurse. Well, I don't know if it's an RN, an LVN, certified, whatever. I don't know. Okay, a nurse, an average first responder would have spotted these signs: sweating profusely, high pulse, high blood pressure, spasms, high body temperature. Those are all the signs of a reaction. What'd they do? Oh, yeah. No problem. We'll just throw them in a drunk tank. You can't do that. And then, like I said, you got the sheriff, you got the deputy, the arresting deputy who is at fault. You got the nurse that was at fault, and you also have the guy, the 3 points. The guy who was watching, or guy or female, who was watching the cameras, who didn't see anything. They're supposed to staff those cameras. They didn't do it. So he passed away on his toilet, thrown with his head over the bowl, and nobody caught it. Okay, you can't have that. The minute those cuffs snap on your hands, you are the responsibility of those people. Okay. Now, after going through the coroner's report, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that just shocked the hell out of me.
What were some of those things, Ray?
Oh, well, first of all, the arrest. Now, like I said, Joshua was basically popped for basic misdemeanors. Failure to appear, which is a misdemeanor. You had accident, misdemeanor, paraphernalia, the plastic bag, which really isn't considered anything. And then his, since he was on probation, they put him on a felony hold, which is normal for California.
Sure.
What happened is that all these were misdemeanors. And they, you know, if they would have noticed that he wasn't drunk, but he had a chemical problem that was causing him distress, they should have picked it up. The deputy should have picked it up. The nurse should have picked it up. The people watching the cameras picking it up. Nobody saw anything. Okay.
And Ray, for our audience right now, for those that have just joined in, we're discussing the crisis of an in-custody deaths in Riverside County jails. We're honoring Joshua Frank Swart and amplifying the voices of those who loved him. And we're speaking with Ray Carney right now, a close friend and a family member of Joshua. So Ray, let's continue on with what you were saying. Ray, did I lose you there? We got Ray frozen on the other side. Okay, so here's what we're going to do right now is we are going to take a moment and to thank our sponsors who make the Take Your Power Back show possible. And when we return, we'll either have Ray back in the room, but we've got Michael Lujan, Captain Michael Lujan, who is on the back end. We'll be bringing him into the room in just a second. And without further ado, we've got Mike Lindell entering the room right now to share with us on the power of my
Just
pillow.
like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented My Pillow. My Pillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got My Pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well rested in the morning.
So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King My Pillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic My Pillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
I love it. Mike Lindell at MyPillow. That's mypillow.com/Kim. Go get what you need for a great night's rest and support our Patriot, Mike Lindell at mypillow.com/Kim. Your support also supports the Take Your Power Back show that keeps freedom alive. Now, without further ado, we've got Patriots Buying American. That's right. So listen. Are you looking for a resource that's actually going to turn the lights onto the body? A resource that you know has ingredients in it that are the best of science and nature. A resource that's not made in China, but it's made here in the good old USA with the best of science and nature. Well, let me tell you, you can find what we call the Peak Performance Pack Nutrition, turning the lights onto the body at patriotsbuyingamerican.com. That's patriotsbuyingamerican.com. So if you're like me, who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, then it's time for you to take your power back with the Peak Performance Pack that you can find at patriotsbuyingamerican.com. That is just one of over 450 products that are better, safer, and less expensive than the stores. That's patriotsbuyingamerican.com. Go today. You're going to tap into a video when you put your information in, and that is going to give you the tool that you need to take your power back from the big box retailers and to have nutrition that turns the lights onto the body. That's patriotsbuyingamerican.com. Now, beef. They say good beef, good life. Listen, I like beef. As a mom, I cooked beef, but the beef, it was okay. You'd have to go out to a nice steakhouse to get a delicious piece of beef. And then the question was, does it have antibiotics? Does it have hormones? Well, guess what? You can get today your beef that has no antibiotics, no hormones, and no mRNA, and it's absolutely delicious. I had ribeye last night for dinner, and let me tell you, the perfect amount of fat. I've had beef in many places. This is the best beef I've ever eaten. I want you guys to have access today, and you can have access today at patriotvbeef.com. Go to that link, patriotvbeef.com. We've partnered with Patriot TV. It's going to take you to our resource, vertical integration, the best beef you're ever going to eat. That's patriotvbeef.com. And without further ado, our show today is an eye-opener. We are taking our power back across the state of California right now in many ways. And one of the ways we're doing that is we are shining the light on what's happening in our jail systems. We're joined now by Michael Lujan, a retired captain with the Riverside County Jail Sheriff Department, who served for 31 years, including Chief of Police for Lake Elsinore, Wildomar, and Canyon Lake. Michael has an incredible bio. He grew up in a military family, learning integrity, hard work, and dedicating decades to law enforcement. And I want to say an absolute honor to have him here right now on today's show, the Grand Jury Reports. We are bringing it. What's happening in the Riverside jails. So welcome, Michael Lujan, to the Take Your Power Back show. An honor to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. First and foremost, I'd like to express my condolences to Rhonda and Ray. Sorry for their loss. It's a tragedy. It should have never happened, quite frankly. And it's important to understand that. I mean, I'm at all in their story, you know. There, as a retired captain with 31 years with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, I see some training issues, of course, you know, in the patrol section and within the corrections. So, and I can tell you that our correctional staff, I spent 7 years, I think, total in corrections. They work hard. They work hard. They give 110%. And whenever there's an in custody death, we typically would have a debrief, and they feel remorseful and sorry for the loss because they are responsible. Chad Bianco and his staff are responsible for the care and custody, and nobody wants an in custody death. Nobody wants
Right.
it. But mistakes are made. We have to acknowledge that, and we have to address them and take steps to improve it and to correct those deficiencies. Now, what really cuts to the heart, Sheriff Chad Bianco, is the way he insults, offends, and diminishes an individual's life, and at the same time praises God. It is beyond me. You can't. To me, I go, you're not really Christian-like when you do things like that, because life is precious. Every life is precious.
Michael, you are right. Every life is precious. And let's share this big picture again so that people really understand what we're looking at today. The grand jury reports and lawsuits point to systematic issues in Riverside County jails: mismanagement, inadequate medical care, failure to protect vulnerable inmates. So from your experience, what's going wrong under Sheriff Bianco's leadership?
Leadership. That's it. Leadership. And I can tell you, during my 31-year career with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, I worked for 5 sheriffs. Five sheriffs. Chad Bianco being the last sheriff. Never seen anything like this with the other 4 sheriffs. And the problem is, I think, is there's no accountability in regards to the leadership. You look at the grand jury report, and it opens up with a statement from the sheriff that that they're basically not responsible for any of the deaths that occurred in custody, right? And so we have these grieving families, these mothers, these fathers, these brothers, these aunts, these uncles, these nieces and nephews for their loved ones, and what compounds that grief and torment and pain is the sheriff himself making those disparaging remarks. And not only that, lying about what had occurred to their loved one in custody. For example, if you look at Christopher Damien's reporting out of the Desert Sun, the Upton case, you look at the reports and look at the statements made by Sheriff Bianco. They're totally different. You look at the individual that was thrown over the second tier banister. There was a black inmate and a white inmate. He said it was the victim of the homicide was a black inmate, and that he had a long criminal history, and that they were housed together in the same cell for some time. But however,
and this just happened. This is fresh, hot off the press.
However, what we're seeing here is that through Christopher Damien's reporting, 75 reports and videos is a lot to obtain, in my opinion, for an investigative reporter. The individual, it was his first day incarcerated and his last day of life. So the whole 3 months long criminal history, and his criminal history turned out to be non-violent, right? So I think the problem is leadership. I mean, I always encouraged people when they came to work, both in corrections and on patrol. I had a simple philosophy: come to work, make a difference in someone's life, and go home at the end of your shift, right? Because that's what we're there. We're there to make a difference in someone's life, to whatever degree. Right? Small degree or large, we're there to make a difference in someone's life. But when you have leadership under Bianco, who has been repeatedly proven to be dishonest, and disparaging of people in custody, we all make mistakes. I'm not above making mistakes. I'm a sinner like everybody else. But I pray, I ask for forgiveness. I say the rosary, and hopefully I can get through the pearly gates. Doing good, at least trying to do good, at least being truthful. The problem with in this particular case, right? You have Fonda, the mother. You have Ray, the friend, and then you have the father, which I believe is out of state or somewhere out of the county. If I was sheriff, I would sit down, I would review the case, I would sit down with the family and say, this is what occurred. Because the truth will always come into the light, right? And then if you're going to start lying from the start, you can say a lie or you can withhold information. An omission is a lie, right? We've always taught that. You tell the truth, let the chips lie where they fall. I would sit with the family and say, this is what occurred. This is what we know. There's more investigative investigations to do, investigative work to do, and there things could change. But this is where we at. I would not want to prolong the pain and suffering and the grieving of a mother or a father or a family member.
9 months. It's been 9 months, enough time to have a baby for them to find out how their son, Joshua Swart, died.
And I'm so sorry, and I feel for Fonda and Ray, because they're begging for information to know.
Yes.
At the end of the day, my son has passed away, and I just need to know, right?
Yeah.
Sheriff Bianco should have told them, and the whole "there's nothing more you need to know," that's unacceptable. I worked the Central Homicide Unit for almost 10 years. I was involved in roughly 250 Central Homicide Unit cases.
And thank you for your service, by the way.
Very welcome. The privilege and honor was mine to bring, closure and some solace to the surviving victims of homicide, right? And we did death investigations as well, non-criminal death investigation. And they were relieved just understanding what had occurred. And I think that's important because that's part of the not only the grieving process, but more importantly, the recovery process. You're always going to miss your loved one. You're always going to pray that he's watching down, and you're always going to pray that the good Lord's perpetual light continues to shine upon him, right? But it just makes it a little easier during the grieving and mourning process that and you understand what had occurred. And I blamed before leadership on that, leadership of Sheriff Bianco. And you see it repeatedly because he's not held accountable. Now, in regards to corrections is, I view the Sheriff's Department in my 31 years, 4 major areas that are important, that are equally important. And you need to balance those. 1 is corrections, 2 is patrol, 3 is court services, right? And 4 is dispatch, right? Those are the main 4 areas. I believe those are the nuts and bolts that make the organization function, right? I believe, in this particular case, I would really look at what happened at the patrol level, because Ray was hit the nail on the head. You found a baggie in the person's mouth. So what does that tell you? That tells you that person is ingesting narcotics, right?
Yeah.
Probably a large.
The layman would know that. I'm a layman. I would know that.
A large amount of product, narcotics, as to not get arrested. So you pulled out the bag. It would be interesting to me now as an investigator, what was the size of the bag? A couple other things is, did you tell the intake nurse? Did you tell corrections of this? That's important to know, right? And, and how long were you with Joshua, if I remember?
Yes, Joshua Frank Swart.
How long were you? Because you should have called a blood nurse to draw blood. Now, interesting enough, when I was on patrol, people have done that. They tried to, they have succeeded in ingesting narcotics way beyond my capabilities, way beyond the nurse's capabilities. In my experience is, when someone swallows narcotics, we need to take them to the ER. That's common sense. We need to take them to the ER, because the ER doctor is going to be more apt and more appropriate venue to really look and evaluate. And the symptoms, the objective symptoms that Ray was describing, are spot on for that. And you don't need permission to go to the hospital. You're a deputy sheriff. You're sworn. You're gone. You can go to the hospital if you feel you need to. It is a judgment call. I think there should be a policy, maybe a policy change, or really look at the training on when people swallow narcotics to avoid them being seized by law enforcement during an arrest and subsequent incarceration and prosecution. That if something like that occurs, they need to go to the emergency room.
Okay, let me ask you this, just for clarification. Is there a protocol already in place, in training, for that to occur?
Okay, I've been retired for going on 5 years now.
Okay.
I don't recall ever reading a policy. I think it's just good public safety, because first and foremost, is the preservation of life. All our
Yes.
deputies in the sheriff's department, deputies in
Yes.
the field, correctional deputies, is the first and foremost goal is the preservation of life. So you have to, and you have to identify what's hazardous to an individual, and swallowing baggie or baggies, because you really don't know, right? The profuse sweating, right?
Sure.
The uncontrollable, involuntary jittering. Obviously, if you're evaluating someone for being under the influence of a controlled substance, the pupils are properly dilated. There's, nystagmus if the patrol deputy did an evaluation. Of course, they typically do a blood draw to evaluate, to use later on toxicology in any subsequent prosecution. So, in my opinion, based on my 31 years and my experience, is when you come across someone like that, you should have taken them to the ER. In this particular instance, the key for me understanding what occurred in corrections and the failures in corrections, right, would be, what did the deputy tell the nurse, and what did the deputy tell the correctional deputy? Because I know the correctional, I was a lieutenant at the Coysburg Detention Center, and I know those deputies, and I was a lieutenant at the Robert Presley Detention Center. So I know our correctional staff are dedicated and they work hard, and that is not to minimize, the pain and suffering that Fonda and Ray are experiencing. That's my experience. And I know those individuals, more than likely, their character, that they mourned or they regrettable of the loss of Joshua as well. Nevertheless, it appears failures were made, and they need to be addressed appropriately.
That's right.
And I think it's important
Go on.
that we are very quick, to voice out and praise our accomplishments, but we also need to voice out and praise our, deficiencies and what we're doing. And I think the grand jury report really kind of expresses that these are your deficiencies. And the response was, the response from Sheriff Bianco, is,
let's pull that up. We're going to pull that up right now.
If you read the response, it's just, what does it say? I know.
This is okay. So let me pull this up right now so that I can read it as well.
It's in the third paragraph, the last sentence.
Yes. Actually, hang on one second. Let me let's pull this here. It's a little small. I want you to be able to see this. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, let me get close. Excuse me.
I'll read that for you.
Read it. I got it.
Okay, you got it.
We do an industry-leading, fantastic job in our corrections divisions, and we are not responsible for any of these deaths. I agree with the first part of that sentence, but the bottom line is, an individual was in the care and custody of the sheriff's department, and we are responsible, however you cut it. Now, a lot of times, and Sheriff Bianco has been on the record and stated that, the only badge that matters is his badge, and the only uniform that matters is his uniform. He is the final say on what occurs. With that being said, he's the one that he is the one that says we're going to withhold information, or we're gonna brief up the family, right? I can tell you, lawsuits down the road, agencies are always being sued, and a lot of times those lawsuits could have been avoided if we just spoke the truth. If Sheriff Bianco just told the truth about the in custody death, if Sheriff Bianco just told the truth about Mr. Van Miller, there might not have been a lawsuit. It could have been, it could have been just a, possession of a loaded firearm, a misdemeanor in the state of California. Perfectly legal.
Let me ask you this. You ran against Bianco in 2022, right?
Yes.
And you were calling for more transparency. So what did you see that made you challenge him?
Well, I was seeing, you really saw it in the commanders' meetings, and all the commanders would talk after the commanders' meeting. So we saw this public, this service above self concept, that he developed. I always say he stole it from the Air Force Academy, because one of their models is service before self. But we kind of got away from integrity, honesty, and professionalism. So what we were seeing is that people were being discriminated against in regards to the application of discipline, right? We saw a lot of the commanders thought there was some ticket fixing going on with vendors with his former assistant sheriff, Robert Gunzel, who put out an email. And so we were seeing a lot of favoritism going on, and we were seeing a lot of, especially to the vendors. If you do look at the projects management unit, we used to have majority of the vendors who did our capital improvement projects within our corrections bureau, within our patrol stations, were all pretty much within Riverside County. Now there's 9 of them. 7 of the 9 are from Orange County. And there's a guy on the projects management unit came over from Orange County Sheriff's Department, and no one seems to know where the money's going. You know, when you ask for a line item cost. So we were all seeing that, wow. You know, we had so much hope for Chad, and here we are, we're 30-year veterans, and he's just, from an internal perspective at the commanders meeting afterwards, we'd be like, man, he's lying his ass off. Ooh, sorry. Sorry about that. He was lying on. So, we saw we were seeing the true character of Chad Bianco and how his dishonesty is. He says he's the most transparent sheriff, but he withholds information, right? He says, and I would ask the voters in Riverside County and statewide, if how many candidates are saying, I'm honest. I'm the only honest one. The law says I have to tell the truth, right? So if someone keeps telling you they're so honest, but yet you have evidence, through interviews and press releases and lawsuits that he's not, but he still runs around and says, I'm honest. I'm so honest. I come with the most integrity. I come with the most honesty, right? Well, that used to be the Sheriff's Department model. You should see it. Integrity, honesty, and professionalism. It also had integrity is non-negotiable. All those have been pretty much wiped out, right? So I have concerns, and to answer your question, I came in late at the last election, right? I was getting a lot of calls from people, and the reason why I ran for the office of the sheriff, because I felt there was a need to restore the integrity of the office. But by this time, we're seeing a lot of people questioning the statements that the sheriff made. You're seeing a little the divide. There's always been a little gap between the public and law enforcement. That gap is now a cavern. Chad Bianco talks about there's no special interest that is campaign kickoff. Well, have you ever sat down with the ACLU? All these,
right.
It's NAACP. You ever sat down and talked to them? The Latino Coalition. Have you ever sat down and talked to them? I have during the campaign. I learned a lot during that first campaign. I learned what the people really were just yearning for honesty. I can't change what had occurred, but I can let you know I'm not going to lie about it. Right. And that's why you're seeing these lawsuits. And I think the leadership is the importance of Corrections Bureau has diminished under Bianco's leadership. The Corrections Bureau is so important to the department as a whole. It is a critical bureau within the organization. And they do incredible work, and they do important work. Right. So when I look at, I saw a post that people were complaining about the 12-hour shifts. The hardest part of being in corrections is the 12-hour shift. Well, that goes to staffing challenges. We always have staffing challenges, but we need to strive to meet those challenges. And I think what caused this snowball effect, of the staffing challenges by removing all sworn personnel out of it, the sworn deputy sheriff that you see out in the community pushing the black and white, that reduces the staffing, that puts great burden on them. And I'm just speaking generally, that people do get burnt out, and you have to have leadership in there that aren't going to threaten them, but encourage them to continue to do a good work. Right.
Well, Michael, let me ask you this. Let's go back just for a second. How can the sheriff's department prevent tragedies like Joshua's? And what role can we, the people, play in holding our leaders accountable?
Well, to prevent those tragedies, I think that it needs to come down to more training, better observation, and back to the foundation of the sheriff's department. The preservation of life comes first, right? And see, I go back to the original. What caused this unfortunate incident is, what was the training in the field deputy? That when you swallow someone, you should be aware that could lead to a rather quickly overdose, right? So training is important, and empowering our deputies, and they already have the discretion, but empowering them to just exercise that discretion. Say, I think this guy needs more medical attention than I need a misdemeanor arrest. When people are, when you get to the point where you can't stand,
Right.
you need to go to the hospital. There was a standing rule: if a person can't stand, or if a person was in an accident, right? If I remember right, reading the deputy coroner's report, the car was found on an embankment or a hill that would probably indicate it was some kind of accident, right? It's not normal, and that and Joshua had exited the vehicle. So when you're in a collision, that's an automatic trip to the emergency room. You can't book anyone in the jail, right? If you go to the jail and you say, hey, he was in a collision, they were like, hey, where's your okay to book? Where did you take him to the ER?
Wow, that's a great point. Great point.
So, my managerial hat is, back on, and my investigative hat is on, and I'm thinking about what's going on here. So training is important. Reinforcing to our staff that they're here, they're doing a good job, and we need to reinforce the fact that the preservation of life supersedes everything else.
I love it. Michael, that is just sounding on to me. The preservation of life. That is the most significant thing that we need to look at here. And do we have processes in place to support that? Michael, I want to thank you. Your experience shines a light on what's possible when leadership prioritizes people over politics. I want to thank you for your service again, your courage to speak out, your support for Fonda and Ray. And we're actually going to bring Fonda and Ray back into the room right now, just for our final discussion. We've got about 3 minutes remaining, and we got, Ray had popped off. They lost Wi-Fi, but they are back in. Hi, Fonda. Hi, Ray.
Hi.
Welcome back. It's so good. It's so good to see you guys. And for those who are just joining on, you are with us at the Take Your Power Back show. We've got mighty warriors in the room like Fonda Torres, Ray Carney, retired Captain Michael Lujan, and we are here honoring Fonda's son today, Joshua Frank Swart. And we are talking about the Riverside County Jail grand jury report record, the in custody record deaths, and that has absolutely got to change. So I've got just a couple questions before we close up the show today that I think are really important. Rhonda, let's start with you. What would justice look like for you and Joshua right now?
Well, I wouldn't be in this position if the sheriffs did their jobs right, okay? If they were properly trained and saw a situation and held that situation, my son wouldn't be dead, okay? And then when he got to the jail, they allowed him and okayed him to go into a cell where his body was decomposing hours before they even found him. In that position, although he was on camera held by a sheriff who is supposedly to be trained in this position.
Right.
Sheriff Bianco needs to go. His time is up. Whether he's become numb to his situations and his power to go ahead and run for governor is more important. It shows in what's happening in these deaths.
Thank you, Fonda. Thank you for reinforcing the importance of that leadership and that training. Stay with us on the camera. Don't go anywhere. Get close to Ray. We want to see your beautiful face. Stay with us. Ray, you all are examples of what it means to be tenacious, what it means to persevere, from daily phone calls, weekly phone calls, months to 9 months of finally getting the information of how Joshua passed away. What would you advise to all of our freedom-loving patriots today that are listening in of what they can do in Riverside County to get involved in holding our leaders accountable?
Okay, I just got a call from Riverside County Sheriff's asking for his property, and now I get a voicemail. So I just thought during the show I got it. What would I do? Well, first of all, I'm not a fan of this is personally from my opinion. I'm not a fan of deputies running jails, and I'm not a fan of drive-through justice. So the only thing I can safely say is if you're going to go from San Diego to Interstate 10, go through Orange County.
I got that. I got that. I got that, Ray. I got that. Michael, what's one policy change that could save lives tomorrow?
I think in regards to corrections, I think you should require an actual physician, at the correctional facility, and there's 5 of them, which is people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's gonna cost a lot of money, but they are highly educated, highly experienced physicians, at evaluating individuals. The RNs and the LVNs do a good job. And then anyone under the influence caught ingesting narcotics should have went to the ER. And a friend of mine just texted me because he's watching, says there is a policy on it. So in regards to
there's a policy on it.
Yeah, and this topic, I think it'll be money well spent, taxpayer dollars well spent by assigning a physician 24 hours a day. Incurring the cost for a physician 24 hours a day at our facilities to medically to do a little more extensive medical evaluation. Because when people get ill in the corrections, when I was in corrections, we had the nurses do a great job, but at some point in time, we have to make an evaluation on whether they need a higher level of medical care, right? And that higher level of medical care usually occurs at a hospital. So that if I was the sheriff, I would work diligently with our correctional healthcare system and say, is it going to cost to, we have a doctor there during the day during what's called sick call, right? What would it cost to have a doctor there 24 hours a day to do evaluations and be able to address issues like this, right? Because what they say when there's an incident, there's that first golden hour. And you have a doctor there can do a lot more procedures than an RN or LVN. Not knocking them, they do a great job. I work with them, side by side when I was assigned to corrections, And I also would really push, like if you look at the grand jury report, I really push for I'm a big proponent of an oversight committee, right? A big proponent of someone else looking at us to let us know. That, hey, you might do this better. You could do this better. We recommend this, and then we evaluate and implement it. Because when I would read a policy, my boss, the chief, would say, hey, this is a good policy. It's okay. And I'm like, okay, if you say it is, because, we're policing ourselves in the policy arena, right? But it doesn't hurt to ask for help. It doesn't hurt to ask someone, look over our shoulder and say, hey, are we doing this? Or can we do this better? Yeah. And I know Sheriff Bianco is totally against that. And I don't know why. And I know the Board of Supervisors has the discretion to create an oversight committee. And I would encourage, our Board of Supervisors to really do a study and embark on that, because not only do we want to preserve life, but we want to rebuild the trust of the public trust. And that gap that was always there has turned into a cavern. And I think it's the poor leadership of Chad Bianco and the mistreatment of deputies and the surviving victims of those who have passed in our custody, whether it be in the field or in corrections. I just think we need that. I just think we need that to restore that trust.
So that
law enforcement, we used to be a secret society where you do what we tell you to do because we told you. That worked in the 50s, but it doesn't work in 2025.
No, it does not.
No,
accountability
and oversight. Where we
and
that's how we're going to restore the public trust. Not lying to Rhonda, or sorry, Fonda. You got Fonda and Ray. Not lying
circle.
Sorry, Fonda.
That's right.
That's okay. That's okay. It's an unusual name, sir.
That's how we build public. We need to restore the public trust, right?
That's right.
And it's sad. Right. I worked for 5 sheriffs. The first 4, they had their faults. Like we all have our faults. We have to balance what's going on. But Chad Bianco has made this. He has took it to a whole nother level of unethical, lack of integrity, and really disingenuous conduct and statements.
Well, I did, for the record, I did reach out to Sheriff Chad Bianco today in regards to the Riverside County Jail grand jury report and the comments from the citizens with the record saying that, the record in custody deaths, it is the largest amount, right? So, and saying that Bianco is responsible for that. So I have not heard back from Bianco. I'm looking forward to getting a word back. And if Sheriff Bianco is listening in, we'd love to hear your take on this. And, I always want to believe the best in people. I really pray that, these breakdowns lead to breakthroughs in the system so that families are taken care of, that lives are preserved. I want to thank each one of you for being with us today. You really help shine the light on an area that needs a lot of light and a lot of truth being exposed, because the current system does not work, as we can see in Joshua's case. So, Fonda, thank you for your courage, your bravery. Thank you for being an amazing mama. And my heart just goes out to you. Ray, thank you for being a great friend and an advocate for the family. You have been right beside Fonda the whole way through. And Michael, thank you so much for just being in support of these guys and for continuing to, behind the scenes, you're retired. You don't need to do any of this. You're not running for office. You get nothing out of this. Nope. You're just a stand for truth. So I want to thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for being with us today.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. And I'm looking forward to your link on your November in-person candidates.
Oh, yeah.
In Carlsbad.
Yes. We do have an event coming up. We can't forget that. So we have been doing the Take Your Power Back California Governor face-offs. We've done round 1, we've done round 2, and you can find them at the takeyourpowerbackshow.com. Click onto the Rumble, you'll find them there. Last night we were up quite late finishing round 2 off. We have round 3 coming up June 12th and a few more after that. And then the live in-person event on November 1st. That's going to be a big event in Carlsbad, California. Details to follow. So Michael, God bless you. Thank you. Ray,
thank you. God bless you.
Bless you. Thank you. And we will be in communication and in touch. Well, you guys heard it from the horse's mouths today. Wowza kabowza. This is the time that the truth is being brought out into the light. This is the time that everything is being exposed. So I want to encourage every single one of you to continue to stand in truth, continue to go after taking your power back. I want you to join us next week for another episode of the Take Your Power Back Show, where we'll tackle the water issues in the state of California and a live update from outside the White House in DC. So stay tuned for our June 12th event coming up as well. The Take Your Power Back California Governor Face-Off, round 3. We have David Serpa, Ryan Tillman, Brandon Jones. You can find round 1 with Bianco, Leo Zaki, and Naranjo. Round 2 with Hilton, Daniel Mercury, and Kobe Markham on the takeyourpowerbackshow.com. Click onto the Rumble. You'll find it there. Until then, freedom-loving patriots, keep on fighting. Keep on loving. Keep on taking your power back. I'm Kim Yeater, signing out today. May God bless you abundantly as you stand in truth. And remember that he who began a good work in you will carry it out to the very end of the age. And the time is now. Stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord, for your work of the Lord is not in vain. And again, we honor Joshua Frank Swart. God bless you, and God bless your family.
Thank you for joining us for the Take Your Power Back Show. As Peak Performance Breakthrough Coach Kim Yeater speaks to other freedom-loving Americans that are making a positive impact in the world by standing in truth amid adversity. Listen in weekly and learn how to take your power back in your freedom, in your personal and professional life, in technology and creativity, and in your faith. Be encouraged, be inspired, Be transformed as you step into your power and take action in your leadership and allow your voice to be heard. Together, let's take your power back. To sponsor and support the Take Your Power Back show, go to takeyourpowerbackshow.com. That's takeyourpowerbackshow.com and take your power back.